Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast Inspire with myself, Nicola Wills. Today's guest is a lifestyle and business expert, motivational speaker, and New York Times bestselling author and host of the Chalene Show video podcast. With over 90 million downloads, she is often recognized as one of the top 50 female entrepreneurs to watch. Our guest is perhaps known as the queen of infomercials, with countless award-winning shows from 2005 to 2021. She has devoted herself to helping creative people build their own business and brand, believing that easily distracted people make the best entrepreneurs. Please welcome our guest, Chalene Johnson.
Hello, I'm so excited. This is so fun and very cool to know that we're like in two different time zones and how we had to coordinate this.
Yes, it is going 7 o'clock here in the UK and we are over in LA. What time is it with you, Chalene?
It's a little before noon.
I know, and on a Sunday. Honey, we are hustlers. We work on a Sunday.
Right. Well, if you love what you do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chalene, I could have literally had about a 10-minute bio talking about you and what you have achieved in your life and the impact that you've made on others. But let's go right back to the very beginning of where it all started. Who was baby Chalene?
Oh, my goodness. I think it started with, you hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about like how they were that when they were young, like even in high school, lemonade stands, newspaper routes, etc. And mine is similar to that. I started making money when I was very young. What I think is interesting though is understanding why. Yeah. Like why some kids are just kids and why some kids feel like they need to make money. Like what? That's such an adult concept. And for me, I've examined it in therapy and I can like literally trace it back to an experience when my parents were entrepreneurs and I was probably in 6th or 7th grade and they experienced a fire. They were in a business that was really super cutthroat where they had bought a bunch of assets and they had them in a warehouse. They'd taken all their life savings and put it in a warehouse, and they believe that one of their competitors set it on fire like the day after they had acquired all of these assets. And my parents lost everything. Yeah. My dad brought me into his office like about a week later, and in an effort to teach me about interest, how to make interest and how to make your money make money. He sat me down and he handed me like a little like blue bank book, and he said, here's your bank book. And so I'm going to teach you how your money can make you money. Now, your mother and I have had a fire and we're going to be okay. But what we'd like to do is borrow your money and we're going to pay you back more. Oh, yeah. And it was just, it was a teaching moment for him, and you just never know how your kids are going to interpret things. But for me, it was a moment where I was like, oh, this is my value. I'm like a child and I'm saving the family. Like, this is how I can save people. This is how I can help people, is by like, this is my importance. This is what makes me valuable. Yeah. Which then led to me just starting a bunch of businesses. Even in high school, I started buying used cars for, in a state auction for very little money. And then I would fix them up. Like I'd spend, just a couple $100 having them painted and fixing them up cosmetically, and then I would resell them. This was even before I could drive. Wow. And I realized like, this is a way for me to make money and I don't have to like have a job. Yeah. And I just continued doing that through college. I was the first person to go to college on either side of my family, and we couldn't afford to do that. So I flipped cars, and I started, it was called the All Michigan Auto Swap Meet. And that's how I put myself through college, is as someone who helped other people who were selling their cars privately to people who wanted to buy a car from a private owner.
I love that. Do you think that, for someone like me, looking at that, it's like, wow, that's amazing that you got the entrepreneurial spirit from your dad. Do you think there's part of that then made you feel like I always have to be hustling?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I didn't even remember that story with my dad until I had gone to therapy many years later. Oh, really? To address why I was a workaholic, And so that's when I was like, why is it I can't relax? Why is it I feel like a bad person?
Yeah.
Like why do I feel useless and worthless if I'm not making someone money? It didn't even have to be me. I would give it away. I didn't care about money, but I needed to be valuable to other people because I could provide for them money.
Yeah.
And it felt like something I just couldn't stop. I couldn't sit through a movie. I could go to my kids' games and like be physically present as a mother, but I felt guilty about it. Like I felt like I need to be, like if I'm sitting here watching them play the sport or if I'm playing with them, you better also keep your brain busy on thinking about how you're going to make your next buck, you know? And it caused a lot of problems. I didn't like that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know what? I can completely relate. Now, I haven't done the therapy to know where that has come from, but it's almost like a nervous, anxious twitch that goes like, and it's almost like it feels under my chin. That's the only way I try to explain it. It's like, it's here. It's like, and I just, it's like, there must be more to do. There must be more to do.
Always. And there is, you know.
There is. Of course there is. And then there's part of it like, I just love that. I love being on the hustle all the time. But it's almost like I didn't really even notice myself because I'm like, well, this is just who I am. But when external people say to you,
I think a lot of people feel that and they don't know, like, where does it come from? And I think it's important to know. I think it's important to explore because it can very easily, like any addiction, slip to a place where it's no longer healthy, where it's impacting your relationships, where it's impacting your life. And because working and hustling is accepted, then therefore this is an addiction that we applaud, but it can be just as devastating.
And question, as a woman, do you think also it kind of hinders us being in our feminine energy to then be able to receive love from the masculine?
Sure. Yeah. To some extent. Yeah. I think it can. Yeah. And then I think there's also this like biological thing, which I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble for saying, but like, I think part of our nature is we also want to be taken care of. We also want to have somebody who just like does everything, you know, and where we can just be, I don't know, scooped up and taken care of. And that's really hard when your brain is like, no, I have to do everything.
Yeah.
Don't take care of me. But yet I think it's just part of our nature.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you think it's part of, as in ours, as in mine and your nature, or do you think it's in everybody? Or do you think it's the trauma that happened? I'm so specific about this because it's literally like listening and speaking to myself when you say this, because, you know, right now, like that's how I feel. Like I'm in like mode more than ever. And I just want to like be able to go, it's okay, Nicola.
Yeah.
Then be a good mom. It's just a full circle. And I know that people listening to this, like my audience, are basically me. You know, they are moms that want it all.
Yeah.
So where's the line? Or is there not a line? Like, how do you figure it out?
You have to find that line. I think it requires you setting aside the time, the space, and the grace to figure out where things are off. Because we just go and we go and we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I call it tired and wired, where you're just like, I'm tired, but I'm not going to, if I stop, kind of like apparently a shark, if it stops moving, it just like dies. You know, you get to this point where you're like, I'm so tired, but if I stop, like everything's going to implode. Like I might never get my energy again. And so I was operating in tired and wired and not giving myself the time and space and grace to figure out like what's off. Yeah. Where am I off? And so I learned very early to take myself through, and I do this on a regular basis now, through a personal assessment where I score the important areas of my life and I'm scoring how I feel like I'm doing based on only my perception, based on only my, like, where do I think I need to be? And 90% of the time when I take that kind of a test, Nicola, I score myself very low in the areas that are most important to me. And I score myself so high in terms of like, okay, I'm doing great in work. I'm doing great in social media content. I'm doing great financially. But why have I scored myself low as a mother? Why have I scored myself low in my romantic relationship? Well, I've scored myself low there because it's hard. It's easy for me to work my ass off. That's easy. So when I do that, then I can go like, okay, this is why I feel off. Yeah. And then I have to make accommodations in what it is I do. There's never perfect balance, but I do believe that there is a balance that makes you feel like all is right. You know, that
like a calm energy. Like I'm seeking that calmness, and I totally. And I guess my children are 4 and 5. We have just moved back from Ibiza. You know, we're in London and almost in the center of London where we are. So it's almost like the hustle got back, you know, and it's like, I get it. But I've never really thought of it like that. Like it's come from somewhere. It has to have done, because my mom and dad weren't natural entrepreneurs. But I always had the feeling that I was made for more, and it was on me to create that more, you know? And here we are. Yeah. Hustling and hustling. Right. So, Chalene, so you go, let's take you back. So you've got an incredible father. I mean, I can't believe that happened with him, that, you know, burning down, like that's just outrageous. And I guess kind of back then in the day, there weren't CCTV cameras and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So there was no like, he did it. It was just, what can you do, you know?
Well, exactly.
So you learned that. Sorry.
I got a lot of great money mindset from my parents, even though, you know, I learned a lot from the mistakes they made, etc. Again, even that lesson that he meant to teach me, I don't fault him in any way, shape, or form. Like that was a really good teaching lesson. Right. You don't know how you're going to F up your kids. No, of course. The best of intentions, right? Yeah. But yeah, it was also a gift. And I grew up in a household where we were encouraged to take a lot of risks physically. Yeah. My dad, he raced motorcycles. And so he was a daredevil. He was an adrenaline junkie. I didn't realize until he got diagnosed with ADHD in his 70s. And I'm like, oh, this all makes so much sense now, you know? And so it was like the perfect incubator for someone who's an entrepreneur, because I wasn't afraid to make mistakes. I wasn't afraid to fail. I was encouraged to fail. I was encouraged to take risks. I was encouraged to do all the different things. And I felt good about the way my brain worked, because that's what I saw from my dad. Yeah. Except when I was outside of my home, right? Like in school, I felt like there must be something wrong with me. Like there's something not right about my brain. Because having ADHD, you have all these different, and being easily distracted, you have these things that don't work well in society. Like you need to show up on time to keep a job. You need to be able to stay focused to get through school. You need to be able to, you know, finish reading an essay or reading a book to write the essay. And I struggled with all of those things, but I was like, I know I'm smart. Like why? And I was so embarrassed, like in school when they would hand out the papers and everyone would show their grade. And I would just find any possible way for no one to see my grades, because I'm like, I'm smarter than you. You got an A and I got a D, or I got a C+, but I know I'm smarter than you. Like it was weird. And then, but I always got I felt good about myself because of the entrepreneurial ideas that I would come up with. Yeah. And I had lots of them. So as I mentioned, I put myself through college with the car swap meet, but I was doing like 5 other little side hustles at the same time. And I continued doing those even after my husband and I were married. I was still like, had all these different side hustles and the addiction. So it was perfect because I could, 8 hours a week.
Yeah, you're there. And so let's talk about Brett, because he is incredible. How did you two meet?
At the library. No, just joking. We met at a dance club at Michigan State. He was a quarterback for a university here in the U.S., UCLA. He was a quarterback for UCLA. And something had happened with the coaching staff, and he was visiting all these other schools. And he had already decided on a school, and he just went to Michigan State, which is where I was, on a whim. And we were talking about this like last night at dinner. And the football stadium is directly connected to the the place where I did all of my studies, which I studied justice, morality, and constitutional democracy. And it was this little tiny honors college for philosophy. And it was attached to the football stadium. And Brett goes, Chalene, I know that when I walked in through those doors, he's like, I had this weird feeling like I'm supposed to be here. He goes, I really feel like I felt your energy. And I believe that, you know, I don't know if it's cosmic or whatever, but when we saw each other, it was like, I felt like I'd never seen anyone who looked like him. Oh. And I told him last night, I'm like, I think there are people who look like you, but I never saw them until I saw you, you know?
Yeah. And so was it love at first sight? Like,
it was something at first sight. I don't know if I believe in love at first sight, but it was like, it was like a weird, shocking feeling. And he says it's love at first sight. And, I guess if that's a thing, maybe it was.
Yeah. And how old were you then? So young.
20.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 54
incredible.
now.
Yeah.
We've been together for like 33 years.
I know. You're still looking like 20, but that is, you know, it's like, what is if you could like pinpoint the reason why you still, so just kind of, let's go back and just how I met you. So Chalene and I actually met around the pool in Nobu, in Ibiza. I was on one of my very good friends, Claire's fishing Tenji. And Claire was like, I'm going to message her. She's at Nobu, she can see. And Chalene then came around the pool, and then we spent the afternoon together chatting. And they were like, we're going to Ushuaia tonight. Do you want to come? And then we were like, oh, they definitely won't come, no. And then they chat.
Oh yeah,
and we had a table, and we partied, and then we went to high afterwards. And what I just loved, and I just remember saying to everyone around, I was like, he is in love with her. And Brett was like, yeah, you know, it's like that, like it's pouring out of him. It's like that's my woman, and you're like, that's my man, and that's 33 years of marriage.
Yeah.
What's the secret? How have you maintained that level of like, fizzle?
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't maintained it. It's ramped up. You know, we're much more in love today than we were. Much more. I like him so much more. I love, like, it's hard to describe, but I will try. Part of the reason why our love is deeper and stronger is because we've been through some really, really hard things.
Yeah.
And every time we go through a really, really hard thing, and we just look at each other and say, I want to kill you. I hate you so much right now, but I love you so much. And I know we're meant to be together, and we'll get through this, and we'll be better, and we'll be stronger. And every time we do that, it just like ramps up the appreciation we have for each other, the love we have for each other, the texture, the history, the forgiveness, it's just hard to describe, but we have had, you know, more than a couple things, and we'll have more in the future, which is an amazing thing too, because every time something does happen, whether it's something he's gone through or something I've gone through or something we've done to each other, it always is better. But I don't know that everyone can do that, because I think and we were talking about this last night, because we went out with another couple they were like really deeply in love, and they've been together like 6 or 7 years. So who knows if that's going to last a lifetime, but you do know when you've met someone who's like, I will get better for you. When you meet someone who's like, I will do whatever I need to do to be better for you, it's hard to tear that apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I have experienced and kind of witnessed, so, you know, both of us have a love and appreciation for the network marketing industry, don't we? And so what I have, and within my organization that I see in my network, lots of women start network marketing. They do lots of personal development, lots of growth within themselves. Yes. And then they outgrow their husbands. Okay. Yeah. And so would you say that both yourself and Brett, you like have grown, like you have done the inner work? Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point, I see a lot of that too. And then there becomes, in some instances, this disparity between income and power and value. And then sometimes a woman becomes the breadwinner, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe she just starts earning, and until that point she hadn't. And so there was this, balance and power, and then suddenly she starts earning, and suddenly the partner, it's not that they don't like the business or they don't like that she's successful. What they don't like is the feeling that maybe she won't need me. Maybe I'm not important. Maybe she can decide to leave. And that in some instances, it's just people haven't done the work on themselves. If you want a relationship to work long-term, there's personal development. But I find that very few people actually do relationship development where they're really understanding how to have better communication, how to be a better partner, how to like be a better person for your person. And so when it comes to that personal development for Brett and I anyways, I'm obsessed. Like I don't wake up a day and not read a book or listen to a podcast that focus on how can I evolve? You know, it's kind of like a hobby. And when I did that, I would always, at first, when we were first married, I was like, you should read this book, listen to this podcast, all those things. And he just didn't. And I'm like, it would make me mad. I'm like, well, why? I can't be mad that who I married isn't me. Yeah. I don't want to be married to me. So what I started doing was just kind of downloading it. I would say, here's what I just read. Like, what do you think about this? And talking about it. Or I would read to him a passage, or I would just talk to him about what it was I experienced. And he's said many times, like, I feel like I've read every book that you've read, every lesson you've learned, it's been something you've helped me with. And then of course, therapy was really huge, especially for him. And me too, but like really for Brett, it was life-changing.
And how old were you both when you kind of divulged into therapy?
Well, I've always done therapy, like even since I was a kid. My parents were like that, you know what I mean? There were those, like I had a fear of dogs when I was younger, and my parents were like, oh, well, we'll send you to a therapist. I'm like, okay, this is amazing. I'm sitting here in this room where this adult is like listening to every single word I said and taking notes. So I always had a very positive association with therapy. And Brett didn't necessarily, but I think he went for the first time, I don't know, he probably was like 35 maybe. So we've been married for like 15 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. You two are such a power couple. And I really can see that, you just by being with you and spending time with you, the deep respect and friendship that you have. And it's just like you had more fun than any of us. And we were on the hen do. And I was just like, that is inspiration if I have ever seen it. And we all talked about it and still do to this day. So, just
part of it is also, if I may, I want your girls to know this. It's also the season that we're in, because when I was in your season, I didn't have this lightness. I didn't have this marriage. I was so worried about the kids. I was worried about him. I was constantly asking him, what's wrong? Is something wrong? Is something wrong? Like I asked him that question 1,000 times a day because we just weren't connected. And so I don't want anyone who's hearing this go, I've married the wrong person, or my life is shit because mine doesn't sound like this. We were there too. We were in that season where it's like, you just, you're exhausted and you're consumed by all the things. But if you hang in there, if it's the person who cares as much for this to continue as you do, you hang in there, and it does keep getting better and better and better. It's like when your babies were little tiny things and people told you it does get easier. It's different. It's a different kind of hard, but it does get easier in a way. And I think marriage, business, figuring out all those things, they do. You just have to have faith.
Yeah. Love that. I feel like this is a therapy session.
Like before we started, he knew I was going to be recording a podcast. So he wrote me this cute little, and I'll read it. It says, I love you. You are my everything. Because he knew I would see this before I started recording.
And so was he not like that then? Back? No. Okay.
Now a little. Yeah. Little. I mean, glimpses of it. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
But he was, just had things he needed to process from his own childhood and own experiences that, I think we think I'm past whatever happened in my childhood, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ACE test. It's I'll send you a link to it. It's a test where you score how many different childhood traumas you were exposed to. And, it's interesting when you have someone you love take that test and you see how many things it impacts who you are and how you are and how you show up as an adult, especially if you haven't gone through process those things with a therapist. And my score is a 0, just by luck, total luck that I had no childhood traumas. Now I've experienced like worse things as an adult, and I really do think it's luck. I mean, it's parent privilege. It's like, things can happen from, even if your parents are amazing, you can still experience traumas, right? As a child, and I just by luck. But so for him going to therapy and working through some of those things just freed him to like suddenly he had a sense of humor. Suddenly he was loving and vulnerable, and because he didn't have to like be thinking about, how do I not think about these things?
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like, I know this is a podcast for other people, but I feel like this is like a one-on-one conversation for us. So thank you so much for that. It's just, I'm in a season. We're in a season, and it is just the peace that your words have given me. And I know that they will to my listeners as well, because most of them are, like me. Is amazing. So Chalene, take us back. So you've met Brett, you're at university. What then happens from that? You start having an amazing relationship with him. You leave university, and what does your life look like in your 20s?
Yeah, so it was very busy. It was very stressful. Like, so he hadn't gone to therapy yet. I hadn't done therapy for, being a workaholic. I had a million different businesses going at once, and it was really it was just like survival, right? Yeah. Like we just were going a million miles per minute. I slept very little. I would sleep like 4 hours a night because I was like, I've got all these things that I need to make happen, and I want to be present as a mother. And so I've got to do all of these things like before 7 a.m. before they wake up, and I've got to do all these things after they go to bed. I'm going to work for 4 hours, like all these crazy things. And we were struggling. We were making ends meet. We're in California. Yeah. We're making ends meet. But I was working all these different businesses. He was also working for in something he didn't love. He played a little bit of professional football, like for a minute. And then he started working just a job that was just a job, so he wasn't terribly fulfilled. I'm overwhelmed. And then I got advice from a mentor who basically said, you're never going to be successful as an entrepreneur doing all these things. You have to pick one. Yeah. You need to pick one, and you need to focus exclusively on that until you're known. Like, that was the word. Until you're known for this, don't do all the things. And I'm a coachable person. So if someone much wiser than me tells me something to do, then I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And so that's what I did. I kind of put everything else to the side that I was working on. And I chose to, at that time, focus exclusively on becoming known for creating this fitness program. Yeah. And it wasn't because I was like, fitness is my life, or this is my purpose, or this is why I was born, or this is why I'm on the planet. I really just looked at all the different businesses that I was toying with, and I'm like, this one has the most potential. This one, there's a big need. There's a big market. People are already asking for it. I'm already doing this. It's already kind of working, and I'm just going to focus on this. So I started a program. This is in 1999, 2000. Yeah. I started teaching a form of kickboxing called Turbo Kick. And it was based on, is jazzercise something you are familiar with?
Jazzercise? No. Like,
how about, well, it was like body pump.
Yeah.
So it was a pre-designed workout. So I was creating the workout, and I was scoring the music so that every move, like if you punch, there was like a sound effect, Yeah. So it was like a combination for me. It was a combination of like, I don't know if you've ever watched a cheer competition where they like do the splits and like, and I would watch those, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm an adult, but I want to go back to cheer camp. And so it was a combination of kickboxing and dance and sound effects and flipping amazing music. I am a DJ at heart.
Same.
So I created this program, and it became like really, really, really popular in Southern California. Like I would have 200 people in my class, or 100 people in my class, and 200 people on a wait list at the height of this.
Wow.
And everyone was like, what is this workout? And it was, this is when Taebo was really, really popular too.
Yep.
So I was capitalizing on that. And I was just like, oh, no one knows music the way I do, choreography the way I do. So I'm going to create these pre-designed workouts, and I'm going to sell them to other fitness instructors. And that business was called Powder Blue Productions. And we started just selling it to different fitness clubs and fitness instructors, not to consumers. And eventually we were in, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clubs globally.
Yeah.
That caught the attention of infomercial companies. And then I signed my first infomercial deal in 2004. My first infomercial was called Turbo Jam, and that came out in 2005. It was a #1 infomercial. And that was
the beginning of that.
Yeah.
And just for us English folk, because we don't have infomercials here, but I know not really. So we have commercials, but an infomercial is much longer, and it's like, "Hi, I am Nicola, and this is," and then you're there for a good 5 to 10 minutes, going really into depth.
It's a 30-minute show. Yeah, it's a 30-minute show, and you did have them in England because we have tons of.
Oh, really? I've never. They're not kind of on like the daytime television.
No, they're not on now. No, they're not on now, but they were then. It was
half an hour and basically selling a product.
Yes.
Wow.
The half an hour. It's 3 parts. 3 10-minute shows is how they're put together.
Wow. And so you were I'm seeing them. It's like I've been flicking through the channels that it would come up, and you'd be glued by someone who was good, which obviously you were. Like you would just watch it, and by the end of the infomercial, you would just be wanting to buy whatever that person is selling.
And the goal is someone tune in, they're a little bit interested, and they're like, "This is dumb, I don't need it," and then they're like, "Wait, I think I do need this."
Yeah, and you were the queen, right? You were the queen of infomercials, and that's where you really made your mark. Like you became a household name because of that, right?
Yeah, for I think for certain people, you know what I mean? Like household, not necessarily. I think like now today, I'm sure you've had this happen too, where you click on somebody on Instagram and they've got like 2 million followers, and you're like, I don't know who this is. Like everyone's famous today. But then, there was a lot of, because of the TV, people might not know who I was, but if I walked into an airport, people would be like, where do I know you from? Because they had just, maybe caught part of the infomercial, but it ran constantly, and we sold tens of millions of DVDs, and I became known as a fitness person. But the interesting thing, which most people didn't know, is the reason I believe I was so successful in that is because I always studied infomercials. I studied marketing. I knew business. And so it wasn't because I knew fitness so well. It was like I knew how to speak to the person who needed this. And so during that time, I also kind of became resentful of the fact that people knew me as a fitness personality, because it felt like that's not who I am, but it's how they know me. I've come to terms with that now. But I do remember, and maybe people can relate to this, where it's like you've had success in something, but you're like, but that's not who I am.
You're like,
you know what I mean? Like, there's more to me.
Yeah, I totally get that. And at that time, is this where Beachbody comes in around this time?
Yeah, my first commercial was with Beachbody. At that time, they were not a network marketing company. They were just they just were doing commercials. So they did mine, and then we did P90X, and then Hip Hop Abs, and then a program of mine called Turbo Fire. And then the CEO came to myself and the other trainers who were creating these workouts for them. And gosh, infomercials and fitness was so different then. Like my first program was like, I don't know, maybe 7 workouts, right? And it sold for like $180. Today, you can't sell fitness for $180 because it's free everywhere. It's free on apps. It's free on YouTube. Like, you know, so there's a lot of my story that has to do with like timing, timing. But so he came to us and he had this idea. He's like, you know, people are losing all this weight, and when they start losing weight, they start thinking about supplements and they start thinking about their diet. And so I want to create a network marketing company around the fitness component, and you know, we'll get people excited about it with these infomercials, and then we're going to create this network marketing opportunity for people. And of course, I wasn't eligible to be a distributor. They call their distributors, I forget what they call them now. I forget what they call them, but they're technically coaches, or
maybe
just
like a coach. Is it like coaches, or
I think it's different now. I think they call it something else now. But we weren't eligible for because of conflict of interest. But I also knew, I believed in it, and so I had this opportunity to say to the people who were working. My husband and I own this company called Powder Blue Productions, and we had, you know, hundreds of people, not hundreds, probably 70 people who worked for us at the time. And I knew I wanted to sell powder blue. And I knew that those people needed something that was still the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, so here we were selling our own company, and I convinced many of them to consider shifting their focus to doing kind of the same thing, but actually getting paid. Like, they weren't getting paid anything from us. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have a network marketing. It's just like they were just doing weekend certifications and selling clothing and selling trainings and selling DVDs, but it didn't have that like residual that is incorporated into a proper network marketing opportunity. So I knew that our opportunity for them was small and it was going away. And so I did all of my research. We hired an expert to evaluate the opportunity, because I'm talking about like having to talk to people who I am so loyal to. And I could not steer them wrong. So I knew I had to do my due diligence on their behalf. So we hired an attorney, a retired attorney from Amway, to look at this opportunity and to evaluate it, and then to tell me, like, what do I need to know? What do I need to tell other people? Because they're going to want my opinion. Yeah.
And they obviously said it is a great opportunity, because they did it, didn't they?
Yeah. You know, the attorney came back with a very favorable report, but also you never know. Like, these companies go out of business in a day. It really there's so many variables, but on paper, this could be a great opportunity for these folks. And so, and here's what it could look like. And it could be this, or it could be a zero, like with anything, right? And so I just did that. I put together this, like, wanted to do it all at once. We're talking a lot of people, right? Like 70 people plus family and friends. And I invited all of them to come to Southern California. I invited the CEO of Beachbody, which was Carl Deichler at the time, to just explain, what is this? Because like no one I knew was in network marketing. I'd done a little bit in college. I had played with a company called Cutco Knives. Just like I just dabbled with it in college a little bit. I still own the knives. But so I flew him, or, you know, everyone flew out here to Southern California, and we just discussed what it was, and then just said, you know, I can't be a part of it, but I am a part of it in that you would be kind of selling me. You'd be selling something you've already been selling. All of my friends and the people that work for me, they're all fitness professionals. So it was like, you know, guys, this could be a way that, because at that point, nobody made any money in fitness ever. I was like the only one, you know? And so, I was just like, this is an opportunity, take it or leave it. Like, I don't care either way. I love you. I would feel horrible if I didn't say, like, this is just starting. This is like bottom floor. This is like, you know, that moment. And almost everyone, not everyone, but almost everyone, I would probably say like 90% of the people, like, decided that day to become distributors. And some of those people are multimillionaires today. And some of them, you know, didn't do anything with it, which is typical, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is all about, you know, you might be given the most amazing opportunity, but unless you put in the time and effort, obviously nothing comes from that. But what is your opinion on network marketing, Chalene? What do you think about it?
I think it gets a really, really bad rap. I think partly because, like anything, there are people in every industry who are shady, who are in it for a buck, who do it the wrong way and give others a bad name. And that usually then creates a reputation. The people who I know, my personal friends who are the most successful in this industry and in a variety of different businesses, you know, whether it's Arbonne or Rodan and Fields or Beachbody or, you know, you can name any company. I've got friends in every single organization you can think of. The ones who are at the very top are the most respected, caring, thoughtful, do it the right way, do it for the right reason kind of people I know. The people who are the most successful in this industry would be that successful in any industry. So my feelings on it are, it's a wonderful way for anyone who wants to learn how to systematize a business. Like you learn, it's like business school. You know, if you really go at it right, you learn leadership, you learn systems, you learn methodology, you learn how to put together a plan, you learn how to replicate success, you learn how important recruitment is. Like even in my own business, I'm not network marketing, but if I'm not recruiting talent for my team, I don't grow. I don't make money. If I, like, you know, I hear people like bash network marketing, they'll say, but you're recruiting other people. It's like, well, what do you think they're doing at Google? What do you think they're doing at Amazon? Like, you can't make money. You can't expand your dream unless you expand your team. And it teaches you how to do that. You don't have to have, for most of these opportunities, you don't have to have inventory. You don't have to invent something. Like I have to, every month, so we have a physical business called Push Journal. We've got lots of different businesses, but this is one of my favorites called Push Journal. And every month I have to design a new journal cover, right? Or several. I don't know if it's going to sell. I don't know if people are going to like it. And I have to worry about that. When you're in a network marketing opportunity, you don't have to develop anything. You have to do the R&D. You don't have to do the testing, and that's really nice.
Yeah, it is really nice. And for someone like myself who is, I don't know, I've never been tested for ADHD, so I don't know if I ever have that, but I am easily distracted. I'm a vision person who thinks like here, and I'm excited to do things, but the detail, you know, and like the you know, the things that I would have to do if I had my own business, I wouldn't even get off the ground because that's not where my natural focus goes. But within network marketing, it's all taken care of, you know, and it is such a beautiful thing. And it isn't until really you kind of try to do something else that you realize, oh my God.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah, trust me, I know. I have to hire for all of those shortcomings, right? So in my own businesses, first, obviously, my husband is a major, but I don't want to say buffer, but like everywhere where I'm weak, he's crazy strong. So that's a beautiful thing. Sure. But also everyone that I hire on my team, they all have, you know, I don't have their skill sets. Yeah. And so I have to hire for those things because, you know, to your point, I can't do it. I don't have, my brain doesn't work that way. So I have to hire people. I have to know where I'm weak and I have to hire people to do those things.
Yeah. And just quickly, I just want to add it here. You have a quote on your website that helping easily distracted, highly motivated people create a hustle-free, super dope life. My question to you in a paragraph is how? Where would you start with that? Like obviously network marketing is one thing, but you know, people coming to you to be coached and mentored probably aren't looking at a network marketing opportunity. They are looking for something else. So how would you help someone like that?
Yeah. Sometimes they are looking for sometimes they don't even know what it is they're looking for. Okay. And there are people who, that's one of the things I'll recommend is you should probably start with this. So the way that I help people do this is by simplifying everything, simplifying complicated, complex ideas and things that we struggle with, people who have ADHD, and not even people who have ADHD, just people who are like easily distracted. Like every sparkly thing, you're like, I should do that. I should do that. I could do that. I want to do that too. And it's helping them put on blinders and understanding. So I teach them a way of thinking. I teach them habits that allow them to focus and identify what matters most and how to stay excited about that and how to, you know, feed your dopamine. So for people who are easily distracted, it's not that we can't focus. It's that we need to be really super interested to focus.
Yeah.
You know, if it's something I'm fascinated by, like I'll lose all track of time and you can't pull me away from it. It's like I can't stop. That's hyper focus. And that is so valuable as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs, the ones I like to work with, see details other people don't see. Yeah. Everybody else misses it. And the entrepreneur, especially the easily distracted one, they're distracted by a detail because they're looking for patterns that other people don't see. Their brains pay attention to things that others miss. They watch a movie, everybody else is watching the plot line. Someone who's easily distracted is like, I wonder how they filmed this. Yeah. Where's the camera? Wait, is that person wearing a different outfit than they were? Like and that person then is like, wait, what's happening? What's the storyline? I have no idea because I was fully engrossed in some other part of this movie.
Yeah, I love that. How old were you when you found out that you had ADHD?
I was 45.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
and is that because really it's only kind of been recently that it's been spoken about? So do you think it's that it's you had no idea because it wasn't in our vocabulary, or do you think you always kind of knew you were a little bit different and then you were able to put a label on it?
I just did a YouTube video on this, so I'd love to link it because if somebody wonders if they have ADHD, they should definitely watch this video. The reason why I got a diagnosis at age 45 is, and I'm happy that I went my whole life without knowing, because it forced me to create ways to cope and hide it almost, you know, because I was embarrassed by the way that my brain worked. But I got to a point where because of things I was doing from a lifestyle perspective, including over-exercising, under-eating, including, my sleep patterns, I got so bad, I thought maybe I was having some kind of brain damage or something neurologically going on with me. And I felt it shifting my personality, not like suddenly, but just like slowly, year after year after year, just felt like I was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I'd gotten in like a couple of car accidents in a short period of time because I was distracted. I was doing things like walking up to my front door of my own home, and instead of unlocking my door, standing at my front door, clicking the little beep on my car and going like, why won't this door open? And then I'm like, what is this brain? Yeah. What am I doing? We had a physical office. We had headquarters where everybody worked, and I couldn't go into the headquarters. And we had a big house. Like this is when we were raising our kids. So we lived in this house that was like 12,000 square feet. And I had a big, beautiful office there. But in my big, beautiful office, if I worked from home, I could see, people walking by. I could hear the gardeners. So it got to before I got my diagnosis, I had moved myself into a little tiny oversized closet. And I soundproofed it because that was the only place where I could like not be distracted. Yeah. And I knew like, this is nuts. Yeah. So I had my brain scan thinking like, do I have a tumor? Like, what is going on? And it was like, oh, this is what it is. And then learning what type of ADHD I had was like, everything changed. Like that day is the day I made a mental decision to leave the fitness industry, and I literally cold turkey changed so much of my life that day.
Oh, so powerful. So let's talk about that. Why did you leave the fitness industry? Obviously, you've had this diagnosis of ADHD, but, by all means, in this huge house, living what everyone would be like is the dream. You look amazing. You've got so much money. You've got this amazing family. Everything on page would look like picture perfect. Why would you walk away from that? Well, Nicola, I really never felt like I belonged there. I always felt like an imposter. I always felt like people were going to figure out that I have a degree in justice, morality, and constitutional democracy. And they're like, she's a fraud. You know what I mean? I never felt like I looked the part. I never felt good enough. I loved doing it when I owned the company and I was helping other instructors. But once I became a consumer,
like the product, once I became a consumer fitness professional, once I was on TV, once they were selling me, they weren't selling the workouts, they were selling me.
Yeah.
And because of my own insecurities around like not feeling like I belong there, that was one thing. But then the industry itself, what you have to go through and of course things have changed, but we're talking, you know, in the 2000s and late 2000s, like, I don't know. Basically from the moment I started, it was, hey, so here's some instructions on how to strip all the water out of your body before our video shoot so that you look extra lean. Okay. And you know, just like really keep in mind, like how you look is going to make a big difference in how we're going to be able to market this. And as a woman, you know what that fucking means. Oops.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. It's like,
you know what that means. Yeah.
It's so triggering though. I mean, for anyone, but especially for a woman who is, you know, you're in your like hot pants and crop top, to know that it's not only you thinking, do you know, I need to look my best, but other people looking at you thinking that you need to be a certain way is different. There's the pressure we put on ourselves, but when they're looking at you and expecting you to show up a certain way, it's like crippling. You know, and obviously like now everything's changed, you know, everybody's celebrated for every side, which is amazing. But back then,
that's what we pretend. I still see the fitness professionals. And I think, listen, once you've had an addiction, because I slipped into orthorexia for sure. And once you've been there. Orthorexia is, it's an obsession with being healthy that becomes very unhealthy. Okay. So I was exercising 3 and 4 hours a day.
Wow.
I was only eating like packaged processed protein, you know, like if it came in a little packet so I could know exactly what my calories and macros were. It was just an obsession with looking a certain way. Yeah. And that became very unhealthy. And I trust me, once you've been there, you can't pretend in front of me. I know what it looks like. I know the look. I know the people who are in that industry and in that space and in that place. Yeah. And so I can spot it a mile away. And, you know, of course I don't call people out, but I can see it. For me, it just kept getting worse and worse. And I kept losing a part of myself because until then, all my life, I never had any body issues. I never worried about my weight. I never thought I was, like, my mom has a beautiful body image. Like, I never heard her put herself down, never was told to lose weight, never talked about those things. Beautiful. So I always had a really positive body image until I got in fitness videos for consumers. And then, you know, like, I remember a time when a producer called my husband and said, we don't want to hurt Chalene's feelings or anything, but it would help a lot if for this next series, she got smaller and tighter, you know, like leaner. She needs to be a little smaller, tighter, and leaner. And at this point, I'm already working out 3 hours a day and I'm eating, you know, it's all protein and like packaged and shit. But like, I never had like done any extreme dieting.
Yeah.
And he was upset when he told me, and basically they were like, you know, we just don't know if her next program is going to work well because she kind of looks like the girl next door. And we need her to look a lot more inspirational. So I went crazy. I couldn't exercise. So I was still working out like 3-4 hours a day, but I dramatically cut my calories to a place where it was like super duper unhealthy. I showed up on set, probably only like 6 pounds thinner, right? But I was already so low. I got down to like, I think it was just under 12% body fat, which is so unhealthy for a woman. I lost my period. My hair was falling out. I was freezing cold. I was irritable. I was moody. I was unpredictable. It was just a very, very short period of time. I showed up to do that video shoot. And what's crazy about it is it was just one video series, and I'll tell you the name because people always try to figure it out. It was Turbo Fire Low Impact. Not the regular Turbo Fire, not PiYo. Turbo Fire Low Impact. I'm probably 6 or 7 pounds thinner. But I showed up and everyone was like, oh, you look amazing. Oh my God. What are you doing? You look so good. And that's just such a mind mess, you know? You're just like, I'm about to pass out
Yeah.
I'm so sick and unhealthy right now, and everyone tells me I'm amazing. This is, and then my whole like money mindset started kicking in, like, oh, because I'm doing this, I'm going to make people money. So doing this makes me valuable to people.
Gosh.
And I remember looking into the camera to film the infomercial piece, and the line I had to read that changed everything for me was, and you can get these results too in just 30 minutes a day, eating delicious food. And I'm like, that's not true. Maybe someone else can. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I didn't get these results 30 minutes a day. That sounds like heaven.
Or a lie. Yeah.
It was, and I always say this, maybe someone else could get those results. Maybe. But at that point I didn't. And so I thought to myself, who am I? What am I doing? Speaking authentically and my own truth is who I am. I can never do this again. And so I stepped away from fitness in that moment. And I did go back and do one more video series after that. I did PIO. But at that point, I'd been diagnosed with ADHD. At that point, I'd completely changed my life. At that point, I had become healthy again. Nonetheless, I knew after I did PIO, I wasn't going to ever do another fitness infomercial or another fitness program for consumers, because I knew it wasn't healthy for me. Yeah. And I know other people can do it, and they can do it in a way that's super healthy. But for me, it just, because of my own, issues, like I don't blame anyone. It's the industry. I really don't blame anyone, but myself. Like certain people can go to a bar and have a couple of drinks and they'll be fine. And other people are like, I can't do it. And that's how I feel about doing fitness consumer videos. I can't do it.
Yeah. And do you think that conversation, like, you're so strong and you're so aware, but is there part of that conversation that's still there that sometimes will be like, oh, you can't eat that, or you're going to be you're going to get fat, or you know what I mean? Because you can never not hear that now.
Yeah,
you've heard that has been told to you that you're not good enough. Like your worth is dictated by how thin you are. Yeah. And to have that feeling, could you ever not have that ever again? Do you know what I mean?
As a woman, I think we always hear this because we're inundated with it, right?
Yeah.
But for me, just doing therapy, which I did afterwards, and also having a husband who, as I kind of like came out of that, because I had to go through this transition, like I had to kind of what they call reverse diet, and I had to change my life. So I went from working out for like 4 hours a day to working out an hour. And I went from eating nothing to eating. And I went from not sleeping to sleeping. And when I did that, I experienced some weight gain, right? I think I probably went up, not from my lowest, but like when I was filming most of my fitness infomercials, I hate to say the number because I think that's triggering for people, but I'll say the number that I was. I mean, that's the number I'm supposed to be. It's the weight I've been all my life. It was only when I did the extreme part of it that I dropped like 6 or 7 pounds. Anyway, so that number that I maintained all my life, once I let go of all of that, I gained probably like 7 pounds, and I didn't care because I felt so good. And my husband was like, oh my, like he was, made me feel like more beautiful than ever, and just like acted like I was a whole new person. And I think that had a lot to do with I was a whole new person mentally. I'd let go. I was just like, I could enjoy life. I could go to dinner. I could have bread. I could drink a cocktail. I didn't worry about salt, any of those things. And he was a big part of that healing for sure. Yeah. And then my body figured out like, oh, okay, we can go back to the set point. I today weigh what I weighed when I was filming 90% of my videos, which is crazy to me because I work out, I walk, and I eat what I want.
Yeah.
So to think of the hours and hours I believed I had to do what I was doing, and the food I denied myself, the social engagements I didn't go to, the worry that I carried with me, the stress that I carried all the time about my body, and to think like I didn't have to do that. It's kind of crazy. But you have to go through what you have to go through.
And that is just so true because I haven't since the beginning of summer, I haven't done any exercise. And in clothes, I actually look thinner because I haven't done any exercise. And I look in the mirror and I'm expecting to see someone who I detest because I haven't done the exercise and I've kind of had a relaxed diet. And I look at myself and I'm like, or in pictures from Claire's wedding last week, I was like, oh, actually you look all right. You don't look, because it's like, because I should be eating this. And anyway, again, it's my own thing. I should eat this, be not eating the bread, and I should be exercising every day. And because I'm not, therefore I'm expected to look like a monster. But actually, like you said, like this is just naturally Nicola who I am. And sometimes we just forget just to be in the human body that we were just given, and just trust that actually it's just okay as it is.
Yeah. And exercise is still absolutely the drug that I use to regulate my brain. So I lift weights every single day, not every day, probably 5 days a week currently. And I walk, I do zone 2 cardio, which is such a treat. I just don't beat myself up anymore. I used to feel like it didn't count as a workout unless I was physically exhausted and about to puke.
Yeah. Totally. And I get that. I totally get that. So you've left the fitness industry and then you transition. And what do you transition to first? How does that look, like that next stage of your life?
So the very first thing that we did was started teaching people online, creating digital programs. So I did this at the same time. No one knows I'm leaving. I've just made this mental decision. And I start building my own brand online. I start building my social. I start building an email list. I start writing a book. I wrote a book called Push. It was a New York Times bestseller about these systems, like how I organize my brain, how I accomplish goals based on a feeling. And I started building this online brand. And the very first thing that we created was I just realized this the other day. It was a program called Car Smart, and it was audio recordings of me giving people advice on different areas of their life. And I copied that, talk about imposter syndrome. I copied that because I thought, like, what could I do that isn't my body, is my brain, will make me feel fulfilled, and who else has done something like this? And I remember that in college I had the Tony Robbins Personal Power CDs. And I'm like, I'm going to do something like that. So I literally found those and I was like, okay, so there's 12 CDs. Okay. So I'm going to do 12 different audio programs. And I sold this thing called Car Smart. That was like the first digital product that we sold. And then eventually I started realizing there's so many people who are easily distracted and they don't do well in jobs, or they feel like they're dead. And they need to know how to start a business, but it's so hard for them because everything is exciting and everything is distracting. And they don't know the order in which to do things. So then we created a program called the Marketing Impact Academy, where we take easily distracted entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs, and we show them, here are the steps in this order. Don't skip ahead. Do not pass go. This is the order you have to do it in, and let me be your big bossy older sister who's going to say, no, don't do that right now. That's a distraction. And that program now has, I think, 12,000 members in it. And then we just have created lots of different online programs, are investing. We have physical companies that sell physical products. We have partnerships. We've got brand deals. And, I think we have at last count something like 12 different streams of income.
Right.
Which sounds like a lot, but they were built one at a time.
Yeah.
You have to build things.
I think that's important. Yeah. And how do you feel about passive income? Is that something that you are so passionate about? Do you believe that everybody can have that?
I don't think there is such thing as passive income, to be honest. I think that there's income that's less intense, right? I think there's income that does come in while you're sleeping, or you hadn't done something in that moment, but you've been doing something. And the moment you forget, try to set it and forget it, that income will go down, right? So it's even in network marketing, somebody rises to the very, very top and they've got their, downline that's supporting them. If you stop paying attention to it, if you stop recruiting, if you stop doing all the things you need to do, then your income goes down. Like you might still be making some, but it goes down. And the same is true even of all of our business centers. And I can think of like a couple of them are coming to mind right now where it's like they're just not as exciting for me right now.
Yeah.
And so I don't spend a lot of time doing the things I need to do. And the income corresponds. Like when my interest and attention and focus on that business goes down, so too does the income.
Yeah. And also you're really heavy on creating content, like social media content, also with your podcast. There was a very famous lady, I don't know if you know her, called Jessie Lee, who passed away last weekend.
Yeah. Jessie and I were friendly.
And Eric Worre, Eric Worre was speaking about her. And one of the things that he said, and this really hit me, he was like, if you ever doubt yourself, like to create content, look at what Jessie has done, because we're also impacted by her because of the amount of content she has created. And it just was like, oh my gosh, yes. And, you are the same with that. You share everything, don't you?
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that? How do you why is that so important to you?
It's certainly not for everybody, so I don't want anyone who's listening to feel like they have to do that. I always say you can make a tremendous impact on people's lives just by showing up for the right people in the right place. For me, my faith is very strong, and I believe that God gives me so much purpose. And every time like something weird or horrible or good or bad, any of those things happens to me, I just feel personally I have a responsibility. The only way I can make this thing make sense is to help somebody else with it. And to help somebody else with it, I have to talk about it. I will say that social media, in particular my podcast, is therapy. Like I work through what I've just experienced, what's happened, how I'm feeling, and I should pay my listeners for a session because it literally is therapy for me. I share almost everything that happens to me, almost everything. Sometimes I have family members who are like, yeah, don't talk about this. I'm like, all right, fine. They almost always tell me this. Like my brother, every time he sends me a text, he's like, hey, Chalene, don't screenshot this and post it to your Instagram. I'm like, I'm not going to. God. But I share everything. It just helps me to make sense of my own life. And it feels natural, but I know that's not true for everybody. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I feel the same with you. I feel like it's just part of who I am. Like I've always been an oversharer. And also when I share, from what I've just experienced by sharing that, people then come back to me and be like, oh my God, I thought I was on my own, Nicola. Like, I'm going through things with my little girl at the minute. And I'm so nervous to put it out there. But I just felt like I was lying in bed thinking, it was like a feeling I need to share this with the world. And, I shared that with like my husband or people around me. They're like, oh no, why would you ever do that? But I was like, it just feels so right. And because of that, I've had hundreds of messages, people saying, you have made a difference. I don't feel alone. Thank you for sharing. And then you're like, that's just who I'm supposed to be in this world. I am just Nicola that overshares, but do the in-laws. They take me aside and they'll be like, and I know they're not going to listen to this. I can say this. They're like,
right, I gotcha.
Nicola, do you really have to say that? And I'm like, well, I did, and I don't have to, but it's not. Nothing bad. Like there's nothing ever bad or affecting other people, but it's just.
Oh, it's got me in trouble. That's for sure.
Oh my God, tell me, what has it got you in trouble for? Like
I'm being sued for defamation at the moment. So there's that, but I don't care. It's the ultimate way to defend yourself from defamation is with the truth. So there's that. And
people don't like the truth, do they?
No, they don't. No. Well, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. But yeah, so it's it's got me in trouble in that regard. Also, a lot of times when, like, if you're in my life, I'm going to talk about. I won't talk about you, but I'll talk about like I have this friend, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I'll tell these stories and I've changed the details, etc., so that I can share what I've gone through without identifying the person. And there's so many times where a friend will be like, I know you were talking about me, and I really wasn't. But then they feel kind of like that they didn't have that confidentiality with me. Yeah. So I never purposely will out someone. I change enough details, but I am talking about things that I've been through, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about things that you've been through, you and I share a very common experience with, well, mine was a very positive experience, but plastic surgery.
Yeah.
So that is actually when I didn't really realize this, but when I kind of looked back, I was like, oh my God, that's where I know you from. No. That's how you first somehow came into my life through my Instagram, sharing your
plastic surgery nightmare.
Yeah, the nightmare that you had.
Yeah.
Where are you with that all now?
Well, just to kind of like bring people up to speed very quickly, I went in for a breast reduction and to have a keloid C-section scar revised by a doctor. I did my due diligence. I checked with the medical board. I spoke to past patients. I looked at all of his reviews online, on Yelp, on Real Self, etc. And what I experienced in person was a nightmare. And it was, I just woke up completely like as if kindergartners had done my surgery. And I felt there was a situation, a sexual situation that I was exposed to, and that, in my opinion, was I just knew this always happens here. Do you know what I mean? I had that sense. I had that sense.
Yeah. And
I started talking about how important it is to pay attention to red flags. I never mentioned the doctor's name. I described one of the things that happened to me in my consultation that should have had me run. Yeah. And I described that scenario in detail, what happened to me. And because this doctor does this with so many other people, I had, and my platform reaches, you know, I've got like 90 million downloads of the podcast, so it reaches a lot of women. Yeah. And people started hearing that episode and reaching out to me, like dozens and dozens of women initially reached out to say, like, can you just confirm for me, is this doctor? And they said Dr. Malavi or Dr. Laguna, which is his nickname. And I was like, how do you know? And they're like, because that exact same scenario you described happened to me, and here's what happened. And I just kept hearing from more and more and more women who had horrific experiences. And then I learned that he was being investigated for the death of a patient because he had allowed two trained individuals in his office who weren't doctors, weren't even nurses. He taught them how to do surgeries. And so that explained why I looked like Frankenstein. To me, that's in my mind, that I'm like, okay, so this now makes sense. And then, you know, to learn that this woman had died and that the medical board was investigating him for that, and that they were specifically looking into these other people in his office doing the surgery so he could still do consultations or just go faster, whatever the reason. And then I started talking, because then I knew if these people put two and two together and knew who I was talking about, then there are hundreds of women out there. So I need to name him so that other people will see it maybe and go like, hey, didn't you go to Dr. Malavi? And I because I contacted the medical board, they were just wanting to silence me. Any organization, even the police, like nobody wanted to do anything with us because it was a doctor. But I kept hearing woman after woman, like women who had, a woman who had been in a coma, a woman who had her breasts removed because she got an infection while she was doing surgery with him, and he came back, brought her back in, and told her, oh, I just need to clean some of this up. And she woke up to a double mastectomy. Like these horrific, like, I'm like, this is, no one would ever possibly believe this is like real life. What in the world? This can't be real. And just, you know, I spoke to over 80 different victims and spoke out about it. Of course, he tried to silence me and threatened to sue me for defamation. I said, okay, right. Yeah, I'm only speaking the truth. So, and today now the Orange County District Attorney has filed an injunctive relief to protect the public. They have raided his practice in his home, and there's a criminal investigation that is ongoing. Today, to my knowledge, at last check, he's still able to perform surgery. I mean, don't quote me on that, but because I know that the DA has this order that they've just filed, but I don't think that it's been ruled on. But you know what? People know now, you know? And that's why I continue to talk about it, because if I don't, it's so easy, especially here in the United States, for people to assume they're going to someone who's qualified, to look at reviews, to assume, this is a big one, never assume because someone has a big social media following that they're a qualified physician. They're not. Not necessarily. And so I think it's really, really, now today, if you're in the United States, I say you have to hire someone who can do the due diligence for you, because what you're seeing online is oftentimes not what you're actually getting.
And obviously you're the type of person, you did the due diligence. You didn't just go, oh, he looks okay. You did probably what most people wouldn't even do. And also like the surgery that you had is not even like big, you know, like it's a simple procedure.
Should have been.
That so many, you know, it's like common. It's not as technical or like, and so for you to have been in that position.
It was a gift. It was a gift from God, right? Like, so
you saved
I
lives.
had everything revised. I had to go to another doctor to revise everything because it was horrible. But I really feel like God protected me to be strong and to have, you know, not to have, like, some of these women, their lives have been changed forever. You know, I can deal with some scars.
And then they sit at home thinking, I'm the only person in the world this has happened to. Why me? And it isn't until someone like you has that voice that they go, I'm not alone. And that connection by your vulnerability is everything.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that. I appreciate that, and I accept that. And it means a lot to me. It's emotional. I think plastic surgery is something that we have made it seem so simple and normal on social media. Like, oh, it's just do this. But like, you're literally another human has their hands inside of you. They hold your life. It's, I don't want to say it's a violation, but man, it's far more emotional and personal than what people realize. The healing is far more difficult. You're only seeing the good stuff. You're never going to see the nightmares online. And if you can afford it, if it's something you really want to do, I'm all for it. But same. Please, I just warn every woman to, if you can afford to do it, you can't afford not to. Just pay somebody else. And there are lots of people who provide this service now to do this, all of the research for you, so you know exactly who you're going to, what you're walking into, what the true complications look like, what your healing process looks like, how to set your expectations appropriately. All of those things are so important.
Amazing advice. What's next for you, my gorgeous? Where are you going now? Like, you've achieved so much. What is next for Chalene?
I don't know. I never know. It just lands. You know what I mean? I trust that God always has the plan. I don't need to know it, which is great. I never have a 5-year plan. Like, you know, Brett and I, we have things that we do personally that we love, and we're traveling, and we're moving to Florida from California. Right. We're going to do like 6 months and 6 months. And then we'll do, actually that's not true. We'll do 3 months in California, maybe 2 or 3 months in Europe, and then 6 months in Miami. We just like to be wherever the energy, the art, the people, the culture, the restaurants, the music. We can't do sleepy. And so that's for the two of us. I don't know what's next for me professionally or business wise, other than like what I'm doing right now, right? And I like just being open to like whatever. Like I could have never ever have guessed that I would spend like 2 years being a patient advocate, right? And turning my platform into this place to help women. I could never have guessed. So it's so cool the way God just goes like, hey, here's something you could do, and I follow His lead.
Is there anything on your bucket list that you haven't done yet that you want to do?
Great question. That is such a great question. I have to think about it. I know there is. So I'll have to get back to you on that, because I want to daydream on it for a minute. Because there's something recently I just thought, yeah, I've never done that. I should try. I'll have to think on it.
And my final question for you, and this is a question I ask every single person who is on this podcast, is what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would give my younger self the advice that I don't need the credit, so I don't have to do it. If I could go back in time, I would have had more faith in others to do things that I felt like if I don't do this, I'm not going to get the credit. If I don't do this, then it makes me a bad mom. If I don't do this, like just even hiring somebody to do our laundry and clean our house, like that changed our lives, and it allowed me to be a more present mother. I didn't have to do that. So that would be my advice is bring people into your life and pay them what you need to pay them, because you will reap the rewards of that tenfold.
Yeah. And just touching on that working mom and getting everything in, have you ever had the mom guilt that, you're striving for more, you're working, have always been a working mom, right? And did you ever have the mom guilt that, that I know that dads don't have, that dads don't have that feeling of, oh gosh, I should be at home with my babies, yet I'm working here. Have you ever suffered with that? And how did you overcome it?
I did, yeah. And I overcame it by acknowledging it. Look, remember at the beginning, I told you I would do that assessment of the important areas of my life. And every time I would score myself lower in terms of being a mother and being present for my family, I would then take action. Eventually, Brett and I created basically rules, policies that helped to develop boundaries, because my go-to is to overwork, right? My go-to is to hustle, but that doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make, what makes me feel good is being a great mom. And I knew I only had one opportunity to do that. So we created policies and procedures and boundaries. We wrote them into contracts. Like I was the only trainer with Beachbody who didn't do any appearances, because I'm like, I can't, my kids are young. I'm not going to miss a game. I'm not going to miss picking them up from school. And if that means me making less money, that's okay. Cause I only have this moment. I only have this opportunity once. If I believe in myself, I can make all this money and this impact 18 years from now, if I believe in myself. And I did. And so we wrote policies, like we put them in writing, Brett and I. We didn't talk about work after 3 p.m. when the kids came home from school. We, we had people that worked in our home, because that was where our home office was. They all had to be gone by 3. Like when the kids walked in the house, it was family. And we had just things that we agreed to when the kids were younger. It's different now, right? Like now I'm like, let's go, baby. But then we would only do one, what I would call major thing per month. Like, so that might be an appearance, or it might be like me launching something, like something that like I would get all engrossed in. We would only allow me to do like one per month, whereas now I'm doing like one per day, So it was being very intentional, and you've got to put it in writing, because if you don't, you will make excuses and say, well, once I'm through this, then I'll do fill in the blank. I only have to go this hard right now, because once I hit this milestone, then I will. And you can make all of those excuses, and you get weaker with your boundaries. And I find that your family and your children pay the price. And it's just my personal opinion. Yeah. If there's anything I did right, it was parenting.
Yeah. And that is a whole nother podcast, which next year we'll do. But it has just been the biggest pleasure. I could sit and talk to you for hours and hours and hours. Thank you so much for giving your time, and on a Sunday, to this podcast, because I know that your words and what we have spoken about is going to impact so many people. I just know it. My audience are mini versions of me. And so I know that I've taken such great value from our conversation. And I know that, the word is inspire. We call this Inspire, our podcast, that it's it's been inspirational, but also really insightful, like insights into things that you have mastered where people are potentially struggling. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. And like we've seen on the other side of that curtain that sometimes that curtain feels so big that you don't, like, where is the curtain? But you've been able, I feel like today we've been able to like peek behind the curtain and go, okay, that's how we do it.
You're so sweet. I mean, this has, been an honor to be able to talk about things that I like to talk about. Like this has really been special, and it was special meeting you and your girls. It was like, we walked over, and within 5 minutes, I'm like, oh, I've known them all my life. Like, let's go, and plus I'm 35. So this is perfect. It's like, I was just meant to be. I really do.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. And we will, I'm sure, see you very soon.